The dog and I are here in Glenorchy, keeping it real. We're here because Glenorchy has magical properties. It used to be separate from the rest of Hobart. Today, everything behind us is really just an extension of Greater Hobart, the capital of Tasmania, but it used to be its own separate city. The magical powers that exist within Glenorchy are hidden. They're there, but they're hidden. But if you know how to look and where to look, you can see backwards in time, and the mysteries of the place are revealed to you. Bounded between the mountain and the estuary, Glenorchy today is home to around 50,000 people. About 7 kilometres north of the Hobart CBD, it covers much of the capital city's western shore. After initial land grants were handed out by the English authority, it was known briefly as O'Brien's Bridge in 1809. O'Brien was the name of a bloke who built a bridge across the rivulet on his property. A couple of years later, Governor Macquarie renamed it Glenorchy after his wife's family home in Scotland, meaning Valley of Tumbling Waters. Before this though, for the longest time, the area would have had several Aboriginal names. To look backwards and back into Glenorchy, a person can go up a hill and there they can find a lookout, and from that spot they can search for a disappeared totem. So the dog and I here atop Poimina Reserve. If you come here, there's this disc, this flat circle on this rocky outpost, and on it has all these arrows and they point to different landmarks about the town of Hobart. You can see over there's Glenorchy where the river is meeting the coast. One of these arrows points to a place called Glenorchy Wilcox Moughlin Chimney. You can't see it because, well, the trees are all grown, blocking the view, but the main reason you can't see it is because it's gone. It was demolished a few years ago, decades ago, but for a long time it was a landmark. The obelisk was erected right next to where the first bridge across Humphreys Rivulet had been. The Glenorchy Tannery. After decades of successful business, the economy changed and it fell into disrepair, and then it was abandoned. Everything was razed to build the Northgate Shopping Centre that opened in 1986. A photo of Glenorchy, circa 1910, a series of buildings, including the chimney, buildings that are pretty much all gone now. In the middle of the picture is the Club Hotel, previously the Coach and Horses, built in 1857. It's still there, but with a newer Art Deco face bolted on the front. And today, it is, as much as anything, a small casino, one of many that are in the area. Church of St John the Baptist had its foundation stone laid in 1858, the centre of Catholic worship in Glenorchy for over a century. After World War II, it became so popular that it became too small. A newer facility was built to replace it. In 1963 it was sold and demolished. Some of the stone was meant to be used to build a memorial gate at the new church. This didn't happen. Today the site is a bottle shop and car park. In the far of the photo was the most important building, the Council Chambers, built 1890. Also the post office, it was widely regarded as the most attractive building in Glenorchy. The new Council Chambers was built in 1962. At the time you could drive your car up to the front door. Today only pedestrians have such access. The old council chambers was demolished, despite some people not wanting it to be pulled down. In 1922, an elaborate and beautiful sandstone war memorial with clocks on it had been erected. It sat out the front of the council chambers. This too was demolished. No one seems to know what became of the remains. It was replaced with a newer memorial made from grey rendered columns and marble. To commemorate local soldiers who had fought in the Boer War ending 1902, a California pepper tree was planted. It was saved. Today it is huge. The species is known to live for almost 200 years. The last century or so has seen the occultation of everything that was there. Everything that we see behind us now wasn't there a century ago. And in another 100 years or so, probably every building will be different again, and that might be repeated for a millennium. But there are clues. You just have to keep looking, and eventually you'll find something, and that'll give you bearings on everything else. So the dog and I here in this overflow car park, that big busy road behind us is the main road in Tasmania. It goes from Hobart all the way up to Launceston. This part of the island, it's called the Brooker. Everything behind us is man-made. It's all pretty recent. 100 years or so ago, it was much more bucolic and very much worthy of the artist's perspective. Goat Hills in Glenorchy from the late 1800s. Oil on canvas from the Tasmanian master painter William Charles Pigeonnet. It depicts cattle wandering down to the shoreline. In left of the artwork is a building condensing from the landscape. The Wright hop kiln was, at the time, the largest in the Southern Hemisphere. Among other things, the proud facility was used to hold community events and dances. Over time, it began to fall down and then it was torn down. If still about, it would be yet another famous landmark on the island. So having studied all the photos that have availed themselves to me and looked at the pictures as well, the drawn ones, and then coming here on site, if I was forced to make a choice, I'd choose that it was probably up on that elevation of land that's just over that way. It's not a hill that one would be prepared to die on though. I don't know. It seems like it was probably there, I think, but I don't know. The building was definitely facing this way towards the sun. You'd want to get as much sun going across the sky this way if you're involved in that sort of agricultural production. Maybe there's a map out there that will emerge over time and will reveal itself as the place of the Oast House, but might be one of these permanent mysteries. Land changes a lot over time. You've got natural erosion, there is water coming through, and you've also got the man-made environment. You've got the Brooker just there, so that puts a lot of pressure on things too. What we do know is that there was a building that was connected to this building that was here, that's still here. It's extant, it's over that way. It's not in great condition, it's a ruin, but the fact that it's in not such great condition maybe makes it even that much more interesting. Built by Captain John Briggs in 1840, the Grove was bought by Stephen Wright in 1869. The huge estate took in what is now the area around Grove Road. By 1890, the farming estate produced perhaps the largest hop yield in Tasmania. The driveway to the mansion was lined with towering poplar trees, 50 feet high. In keeping with the times, the crops were harvested by men and women and children. In 1901, hop pickers went on strike for higher wages. The workers won, but the Wright family, who claimed they could not afford the higher wages, resolved the issue themselves by simply going out of the hop business. The younger Harold Wright at a point took the Glenorchy Council to court, suing for lost wealth. The council was refusing to allow the same ease of access to the water from Humphrey's Rivulet. He lost, having to also pay court costs. The following year, he couldn't pay his rates. He had to take out a second mortgage and he began subdividing his land. Some of the family lived on in the Grove Mansion into the 1930s, but things were never the same. Into the 50s, before the Brooker Freeway was extended and the shoreline reformed, there was an area called the Grove Park, the greatest playground in Glenorchy, where adults and young people would shade themselves and swim in the cool, clean waters of the Derwent, stepping into the flow across the smooth, round stones. There were dressing sheds, toilets, swings, and a long jetty that people jumped and fished from. By the 1970s, the house was abandoned and fine gardens a bare shadow. The Grove Mansion somehow caught fire. The owners of the timber yard that ended up owning all the land gained permission to demolish the remains. But this was never exercised. The estate is gone, the hops are gone, and save a few ragged poplars skittled by the water tumble, the looming tree lines are gone too. The only timber here is stored for transportation. But if you squint, you can still feel it. The city of Glenorchy is filled with vanishing castles.